Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to this bonus episode of Academic Writing Amplified. Today, we have a featured interview with one of my Navigate participants, Dr. Ann Vo. Now, you're going to want to listen all the way through to the end of this podcast because Ann really talks about some of the fears she had before joining the program. And I asked her, why do you think, someone should join? And her answers were just so beautiful. And I am so excited to share this with you. So one thing I want to kind of emphasize about Ann's situation that you'll hear her talk about, that she decided to join Navigate because she was transitioning out of administration. So she had been in an admin position for so long, was moving back to faculty and needed to really pick up that writing and research thread and run with it. So I hope that you will enjoy hearing Ann's experience. And also think about for yourself, if you are in the situation that maybe you're coming out of admin or going into admin or in some kind of transition in your career, that Navigate could be a great way to support you in that transition. As you may have guessed, we are enrolling right now for our May cohort of Navigate. You can go to scholarsvoice.org/navigate. Find all the information about the program, including program dates, but I will also say them here real quick so that you know the key information. So Navigate is starting on May 14th. It runs every Wednesday. The first one is May 14th at noon for 1 hour. We have a live meeting, and the rest of the program is recorded content that drips every week. We alternate between coaching and co-writing on those live meetings. And I can't wait to meet you live. The Navigate program is accepting applications now. So again, just go to scholarsvoice.org/navigate. You can read all about the program. Find the pink button. The pink button should say apply now, and you can start your application process today. Can't wait to see you inside of Navigate. Have a wonderful day. And I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Dr. Ann Vo. Awesome. Yay. I'm so happy that you're here today. And so I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what your research area is. Give us a little insight into you and your career.
Thanks so much, Kathy, for having me. Hi, I'm Ann Vo, and I'm an associate professor of health system science at the Kaiser Permanente Bernard J. Tyson School of Medicine in Pasadena, California. I am a social scientist by training. My specialty is in educational research and evaluation methods. So I've spent a lot of my time working along the early childhood education all the way through graduate education continuum, and spent the last 10 years or so in the medical education space, where I've gotten to do a lot of work around curricular educational program evaluation, as well as data analytics. Currently, I am focusing on teaching our medical students about healthcare and social systems, community and population health, and their role as physicians as they, get out into the healthcare space and start taking care of patients, and how they can really platform and uplift issues of equity in healthcare and make sure that we're taking care of our communities as best we can.
Awesome. It's so wonderful when I just love hearing about people's work and There's so many, in Navigate, we have so many diverse fields. So it's so cool. What an important job, right? Like, so amazing. Okay. So think back to like before you joined Navigate, what was your reason for joining? What did you kind of hope to achieve by joining the program?
Yeah. So, gosh, looking back at those early conversations that we had with each other,
Yeah.
right, about program fit and timing and all of that, I think one of the things that really motivated me to join the program was the fact that I was at this transition point in my career where, I had gone from being in a hybrid academic administrative role to a fully administrative role for about 5 years, and then transitioning back into a full time academic position. I thought that I would really benefit from the structure and support of making that transition and getting back into the scholarly headspace, which I felt had been put on pause for a long time. I mean, I think the ideal situation for me 5 years ago was stepping into a role that would have allowed me to balance both academic and scholarly work as well as programmatic administrative work. But I learned, and it was fine for the time, right? That wasn't the case. And so with the opportunity to step back into an educator researcher position, I felt like I would really get a lot out of being a part of that community and figuring out how to step back into that headspace so that I can get into the productivity work and creative work that I was hoping to do and that I would be getting back into. And I think the program really offered me that, right? It offered me a way of wetting my toes, if you will, academic space. Even though I hadn't really left it, it was still sort of within arm's reach to me. And it offered me a sense of community in knowing that there are others who shared similar concerns, anxieties, and struggles, but perhaps of a different flavor, right? So knowing that I'm not doing this by myself, that there are different perspectives that I could lean on to make sense of my transition was really important. And then the other thing too was the way that the program was laid out and designed really offered me concrete things that I could anchor myself to as I was making that transition. One of the things that stood out, for example, was the academic mission statement, right? And I felt like that was such a valuable exercise because it really gave me the space to think about, okay, what do I want the next chapter of my academic career to look like? And how am I going to prioritize those things by saying yes intentionally to those activities that are going to help me get there? And, not feeling bad and perhaps giving myself the permission to say no to the things that aren't really going to support me in those areas. So, the social aspect, the structured aspect, and even like the intellectual rigor behind it was really some of the things that stood out to me about why it was such a valuable resource and opportunity to go after.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, I think that whenever you're moving, when you move into an admin position for the first time, but then also when you move out, it's like you have to reorient and having some kind of, like you said, like a structure to help you kind of do that reorientation is a really smart move on your part to, like to use the program at that particular moment in your career. And I think that transitions, we always need to pay attention to transitions, across the board. And then getting support around transitions is just so much better than doing it without support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned the academic mission statement. You mentioned the community. What would you say is like the program, like the aspect of the program or the thing you learned in the program that you felt had the biggest impact on you?
I would have to say that, interestingly, it's not something that was explicitly spelled out, but was sort of built into the program, right? Which was carving out the time to give to myself, right? Because that gave me the sense of agency and permission to say, hey, it's okay to take back this time, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, right? Fill in the blank. and to give that gift to yourself. So the time that was necessary to participate in the coaching calls, the writing sessions, the co-writing sessions, and the time to prepare, right? To get the most out of those sessions was such a gift. And I think it was one of the things that made a really big impact on me coming out of the administrative space, because so much of how I had sort of programmed myself in those 5 to 6 years was everybody else comes first, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was no time for me or my interests or what I needed, because everybody else had deadlines that they had to meet. They were relying on me. And, I had expectations that I had to meet. But what this program really helped me to realize that actually it's okay and it's important to reclaim some of that time for yourself. And I am also as equally important,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was any one thing, but that support in making the mind shift was really unique and really empowering.
Awesome. That's what I want it to be. Good. Awesome. So, can you think of a tool that you learn and navigate that you're like still using or implementing now? Like when I think of a tool, I think of things like the ideal week or the writing out your pipeline or like those kinds of things. Is there anyone that like kind of sticks out that you're still using or that you use the most often?
Yes, I would say that it was a combination of mapping out the academic year or like the ideal
Mhm.
year, and then also mapping out your soaring state, right?
Nice. Yep.
Because those two things I felt made me get really honest with myself about how much time there is in not only the day, but the week and the month and the year
Yes.
for
Yes.
all of the things, right? That
Yeah.
are important in not only becoming a scholar who is thriving, but also somebody who is thriving outside of the academy,
Yeah.
right? I forget the numbers, but I actually calculated it after going through the exercise of, like looking at the calendar and color coding all of the conferences that I would submit to or would like to present at, the pace at which I would like to be submitting publications, and then factoring in things like, oh, I have a little human who is dependent on me,
Yeah.
right? For all of the things, because at the time she was 2. And then also the things that I just need to be able to do to stay healthy,
Yeah.
right? That includes the very basic things of actually preparing my own meals and taking a shower
Yeah.
and, like breathing and taking intentional breaks throughout the year to actually be able to set myself up to do my best work, right? It just made me realize, like, yeah, time is finite. I can only allocate a proportion of it to all of these things. So, how am I going to prioritize, right?
Yes.
That was one thing. And then the other around identifying your soaring state made me realize, like, yeah, there are reasons, very tangible material reasons why I'm so tired and
Yes.
all of the things that's pulling on my energy, right? But there are also real blocks of time during the day where I can focus. And I need to be able to protect those time blocks, right? So that tool and that exercise helped me to see that. And again, empowered me with the information that I needed to be able to say, no, I'm not going to let anything encroach on this time, because outside of it, I can't be productive in the ways that I need to be. And I think most importantly, going through those exercises helped me to realize there are multiple ways in which I am productive all the time, right? It's not
Mhm.
just whether I'm able to write a paper or review, an article. There's also other ways that I am sustaining myself and they're important. So let's figure out how to optimize these 24 hours that I do have and figure out how I can get the most out of it, not only for myself, but for my family and then for my students and colleagues.
Yeah. Awesome. It's so important that seeing that your work is embedded in a context, right? And do those exercises are really designed for that to like see your writing inside of this larger context of other projects and your life, like the things that you're doing and travel and all of the things. All right.
Right.
So many
And
people,
I think I
yeah,
was just
no,
going
go
to
ahead.
say the thing is, I think it's one of the most valuable things of doing those exercises is
Yeah.
forcing yourself to acknowledge that things take the time that they do, right? Like
Yes.
time doesn't expand, but those things that take time can, right?
Yes.
So the acknowledgement of that, and also just being really honest with yourself, like, what can I reasonably do without jeopardizing and compromising myself?
Yeah.
Because I need to take care of myself first in order to take care of other people,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah,
Sorry, you're
absolutely.
going to
No,
ask your
no,
next
that's great.
question.
My next question is, okay, so I call, I
Mm.
like to think of Navigate as a career development program that's disguised as a writing and publishing program. So first I want to ask you about like your results of the program in terms of your writing practice and publications. Like how has that changed? If you submitted your low hanging fruit, like those kinds of things. But I also know that you might want to tell me about results that are beyond that, which you've been doing this whole time. But let's start with like, tell me a little bit about how the program impacted your writing and publishing.
Yeah. So, I went into the program setting what I had considered a very low bar for myself. And that was to get this paper that had been on the back burner out the door.
Yeah.
And I did that. So that was
Yay.
nice. Yes. But also, I got so much more done, including preparing conference submissions for 4 different conferences, 3 of which I've already heard back from and have been accepted to present at. And also, I've given at least 2 or 3 presentations related to the low hanging fruit project and other projects that I had proposed that had been on the back burner.
Mhm.
So, I feel like, again, my productivity has just soared after going through the program the first time. And I've only continued to build on those skills and tools since then. So, for example, I mean, we're rounding out the end of March now,
Yep.
but in January of this year, I went into 2025 already having a really good sense of when am I going to be preparing conference submissions? What is the backlog of papers that I'm going to be working on this year?
Yeah.
Right. And by having a good sense of that, along the way, I've been able to say yes and no to other opportunities that have come up and feeling really good about those decisions. Some of them having been really difficult to make. But at the end, I already had a sense of what I wanted to do and
Mhm.
how it feeds into my overarching goal and mission. And it makes it okay for me to stick to that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also makes me feel okay saying, maybe not this time, but next time,
Yeah.
and there will
Yeah.
always be a next time. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. You enrolled in round two.
I did.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, can you talk just a little bit about why you decided to do a second round? For our listeners, the first round is like kind of like the first trip through the curriculum, and it costs $3,000 as of the recording of this thing. And then for a much lower price, like about a third, you can do another round with a group of just people who have already done the first round. So we call it round two plus. Can you tell me a little bit about what your decision like to re-enroll?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. One is that, I realized the importance of being able to protect my time for the
Mhm.
work that I needed to do.
Yeah.
And making that commitment to the program was one way of
Yeah.
doing that. The other was, I found the sense of community incredibly invaluable, especially given the turbulent and tumultuous times that we are all navigating right now, right?
Yeah.
That sense of community really couldn't be replaced. And even though we make space for the work that we're doing, right, around scholarship and research and the academy, there's also room to show up for one another and support one another given the uncertainties, right, that
Yeah.
we're all facing. And I think that's incredibly important because I'm not sure that you can really find that anywhere else outside of this context.
Yeah. That like group of people who is not at your institution, who is like, actually, we're about half and half. post tenure, pre tenure, like, and from all kinds of different types of institutions. That's to me the strength of Navigate and what is rare to find and what everybody needs right now.
Yeah. I think also the opportunity to revisit the curriculum that was
Yeah.
covered in the first round was incredibly attractive because I have to say, the first round was packed. It was so rich, and it was packed in a good way. But the thing is, for me to really, internalize and to feel like I've begun to master some of these tools and mindsets, and also to integrate, some of these new behaviors that I'm trying to integrate, I would need more than one iteration, right, of the program. And so I think it's important to recognize that what this program offers is all of the things that we had been talking about, but also an opportunity to build good habits. And that doesn't happen overnight, let alone in 12 weeks for me, right?
Yes.
And so the iterative nature of the program, the recursiveness of the program is one of the things that made me want to come back, because these are habits that I want to be able to hold on to. I felt I should have built them a long time ago, but I'm doing it now, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay. So just a few more things before we wrap up, or as we wrap up. Finish this sentence. I almost didn't join Navigate because.
I almost didn't join Navigate because I didn't know what to expect. And I was afraid that I would fail at it.
Yes, that is so common. I just want to say that, especially because we're working with high achieving people in this program. And it's like, oh, I already feel a little bit like I'm failing because I'm so behind with getting all my papers in. Maybe I'll sign up for this thing and fail at it too. And so I'm glad you did it anyway, because I think I'm trying at least really hard to create an environment where nobody can feel like they're failing.
100%. I would have to agree. So I'm a program evaluator, right?
Yes.
So I just had to say, everything about the way the program has been designed is truly a safety net, for its participants and for this community that you have worked so hard to build. The flexibility, but also structure, the balance between the two is really beautiful. And I feel like I've seen enough programs. I've consulted for almost 40 organizations. And the struggle, right, to achieve that balance is real because of all of the constraints and structural barriers that organizations face. But you found a way to really do it here. And I think that's really something important to uplift. I really hope that, others will look at your program as a model for how to support women in academia, because we don't have enough of these kinds of resources.
Well, thank you. That means so much to me, especially with you having seen so many programs. That kind of makes me sweat a little bit, but that's good. That's good. Okay. So
just glow. You're glowing.
Yeah. Okay, good. Just two more questions. This is another finish the sentence. My favorite part of working in Navigate my favorite part of Navigate was?
My favorite part of Navigate was learning alongside other program participants. There was just so many unique perspectives on the curriculum that we were all experiencing together. And, the exposure to the challenges across all of the different disciplines that were represented, wow, you can't recreate that. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, amazing. That's my favorite part too. Okay.
And then definitely scratched my intellectual itch. And I'm like, I didn't even know I had it.
That's amazing. Okay. So the last question is, who would you recommend Navigate to and why?
I would recommend Navigate to the person who thinks that now is not the right time. Because, after becoming a mom, I realized and I found new appreciation for, the fact that there is never really a good time. But it's always a good time to prioritize yourself and to love yourself. And I feel like this is one of the ways that you can do that in a very authentic, genuine, empowering way, and to find yourself among a community of women who are trying to do the same. It's really something special.
Well, that is a beautiful place to end this podcast episode. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you, Kathy. This was fun.
Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.